publishers or on reviewers. The whole, if you give my game a bad review, we will not give you review codes. You will not be able to get your review out on time.
I mean,
Therefore, they have
gaming being so unregulated, it's not even like a reviewer issue. Like even fucking streamers, basically any representation, any individual aspect that could be reviewed at any level, just immediately gets pulled. Like several streamers that I've watched play games and just lost all connection to titles that built their fucking stream network because they said one bad thing at one point and collapsed.
But I think it's important to mention because I feel like a lot of gamers are under the assumption that either your review of a game is bought or you're free, and it's like that's not the case. There's a lot of soft pressure that's applied, and that if you end up saying negative things, and I really do feel like the biggest example of this is Jim Sterling. Jim Sterling will say whatever the fuck is on her mind, you know, and no one asked her to review their games anymore. At all. Because they know she will talk about the bad and whatnot. So she's just blacklisted by everyone.
No.
Entirely because of how honest she'll be. And it's just like, guys, like, again, I do firmly believe there isn't a game studio out there that's like, I will give you $1,000. Tell everyone Cyberpunk is good. But they are definitely like, if you tell everyone Cyberpunk's bad, well, you might not be able to review Witcher 4. And they're like, well, that's my livelihood. I won't do that. And I feel like that's the thing, is the gaming community is so focused on either you're paid for your review or your review is honest. It's like, I don't think people are paid for the reviews. I think they're threatened for the reviews. And it's just been especially fun this year seeing how the games media needed to tackle, you know, reporting on Activision. And they kind of did it in a shit way where they're like, if Activision is big news and stuff and clickbait.
Oh, the coughing? Yeah, no, that was somebody at the elevator. I got the cancer. Yeah, there should be another person. Yeah, no, I agree. And definitely, I think reviewers as a whole have a lot more leeway than tubers and streamers though. When you have like IGN and like there's actual pull there, but like Legend of Total War, literally he always plays Total War games, right? He originally. No, I'm good. Probably back home. But he always plays Total War games. He built his entire sort of stream career off of them. And it was going great for so many titles. And I think one of their more recent smaller titles that did poorly, he did a review of it, made negative comments, and he hasn't gotten a key or any related content to Total War directly from them since. So like several fucking streams ages ago of his that I watched where people were asking him, so you gonna play this game? It's like, I mean,
do you really like MK7 ARs?
Yeah, I've got a gray at the moment.
I've got a purple.
I will take that purple. But yeah, no. So now, whenever anybody's like, you can do a review of this or that, I mean, I'll get it when you guys get it. I don't get anything ahead of time anymore.
Right, but I just feel like it's important to discuss to the video game market. It's because they seem to be obsessed with the idea of you're either bought or you aren't, and I'm like, it's not that. It's that there's a soft power that's employed. You either agree with the game or you don't, and if you don't, you're not allowed to truly review it. Your review comes out too late. And I feel like no one really acknowledges that, which I think is a real shame, considering how prevalent it is. Because like people started to talk about it a little bit with Last of Us Part 2. There were some reviewers that talked about how they're not allowed to say bad shit, but everyone ignored it. And it was great because around Last of Us 2, there was a lot of talk about reviewers being paid to say good things about it. And I'm like, why would you say that when there are some reviewers admitting like they have to say good things or they lose access to it? Like, why wouldn't you focus on the actual issue that you know is an actual issue that people are telling you is an actual issue? Why would you instead just ignore the fuck out of all of that and say, no, game developers definitely pay. That's the only reason Last of Us 2 did good. When you've got people straight up telling you, like, hey, I have to give it a good review or I won't be able to review the next Naughty Dog game. And I don't know. It's interesting that, in my opinion, we have more than enough evidence that that is a thing, and people just kind of gloss over it and are like, it's alright.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay. I mean, again, I don't believe anyone would pay a reviewer for a review. Why would you give money to a reviewer? Gross. Especially when you can soft power them into, doing what you want anyway.
No, I'm sure plenty of people get paid decent amounts. Which I imagine that they're probably a decent number of people who've tried to work out contracts to motivate them to say nicer things without just you don't.
Well, I do think ultimately, especially this year, just the whole Activision shit, it's been really telling to look at the games media, which again, their whole point is that they're supposed to review games and stuff and talk about game news. They're game journalists, like how journalists report on whether how game journalists report on politicians and whether or not they're actually, being a good politician. It's kind of the point of journalists, is to keep politicians honest and stuff. Game journalism is supposed to theoretically keep games honest and report on abuse and stuff and whether companies should actually be allowed to buy games, but they don't. Instead, game journalism exists solely as promotion for products. And this year made that fair,
to be fair, there's no solid, I think, medium that you could really rely on beyond just those two distinct things, where one employs political honesty and the other's gaming. Which gaming is it's a private entity business that sells items for public consumption. Like it you don't expect it to sort of need honesty, so to speak, in the same way that like movies are a thing and books
I expect all businesses to need honesty and accountability. Otherwise, they'll take advantage of literally anything and everything.
But again, for the frame of scope, the frame of reference, everything is just drastically off. And as I was gonna say, like you don't really have like a movie journalism that promotes honesty there, or fucking book journalism dedicated to the honesty in that situation either.
I don't think you also have a journalism supporting movies though. You have critics that say whether a movie's good or not.
See, but that's what I'm saying. Whereas you do have gaming journalism for some odd reason, which is dedicated, as you purport, to the aspect of keeping companies like honest and creating an honest atmosphere for gaming. But there's no other medium reliant on that. Your next immediate jump is at a national and governmental level, which is interesting.
I feel like movies and books just aren't as corrupt. I feel like it's because they don't make as much money as quickly as possible. I don't know. But like my ultimate point was this year really laid bare the fact that you can't rely on game journalism to keep companies honest. Because if you ask a game journalist to actually genuinely report on Activision Blizzard and how maybe people shouldn't buy their game, they'll consider it, but then they'll also be like, whoa, we need to write that next article about how Call of Duty Vanguard is the next best thing since Black Ops 2. We have to do that. It's our livelihood. It kind of feels wrong to call it game journalism because so much of it exists to promote the product of the game. Journalism is supposed to be reporting on the news and bringing accountability to the things you're reporting on. Game journalism doesn't do that. They don't really bring accountability to game studios at all. They exist to be free marketing, which is more interesting to me because they are a separate entity. So theoretically, you would think because they're a separate entity, they don't need to focus on that marketing and they should focus on the other things, but they don't.
I would disagree because I think that rather than actually being journalism, keep building. I'll be over there in a second. Because I think that rather than being more of a journalistic entity, they're much more in a similar vein to.
Got 'em.
Nice. They're much more in a similar vein to movies and the like, where it's a review situation, and so maybe you'll get some bad, maybe you'll get some good, but more importantly, what you're getting is you're getting publicity, and that's structurally really where they lie.
Even then, I feel like movie critics are genuinely free to speak their opinion. You know?
I mean, you don't know how honest they are. I feel like that's
I mean,
probably why Ebert.
Theoretically, that's true.
Hell.
But I also want to point out that Marvel movies have been the most successful movie franchise for a good while, and yet Eternals got a rotten score. No fucking reviewer felt like they needed to give that movie a fucking 90 or an 100 or whatever and talk about how good it was. No, they all thought it was shit, and they all called it out as shit. I don't think that happens in the game industry, and if it does, it's as minor as it can be. I think Pokemon's a good example. The Pokemon games have been incredibly stagnant, have not added new features, and have honestly been cutting out a lot of new features that they create and not carrying them forward. And yet those games consistently get 7 out of 10 or higher. And yet most fans agree they've been bad for the last 10 years almost. And yet they're still getting average to good scores for bad games. Like no one is actually out there being like, Pokemon Sword and Shield bad. It did have this one new feature, cut out a bunch of Pokemon. Didn't really develop a shit. Bad. Incredibly simple game design. Bad. No one said that. You had to watch YouTubers that don't give official scores to actually talk about what's actually wrong with it. And we're seeing the same with Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl. A lot of people are saying overall it's the most disappointing modern game because, well, yes, it's modern. It doesn't have any of the features that were introduced in Sword and Shield or Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, which even those games people kind of consider just okay. But the fact that this remake doesn't even live up to the quality of life features introduced by those games, whilst being a one-to-one remake of a game that came out in 2003, it just seems very as by the numbers and cheap and lazy as it could possibly fucking be. And yeah, I'm pretty sure those games still got like a really high 7 out of 10, if not an 8 out of 10 by reviewers. I've also seen a lot of reports of people that the games are very buggy. Still got really high. Still sold 8 fucking million copies. Because Pokemon. I don't know.
I will admit that in terms of movies, technical failures are much more easily called out.
That's the thing. Like, if a movie is bad, I don't think I feel like it's almost unheard of to be like, well, this movie was bad, but critics defended it, so we watched it. Critics are generally pretty honest. Although, admittedly, critics don't. Critics don't always line up. Critics don't always line up with what moviegoers expect. I will say that happens, but I do genuinely feel like critics, when it comes to the movie industry, will at least speak their opinion.
Oh, he's
I
up on
can't
the statue.
On this. Oh my lord.
One of them's on health. The issue that I have with movie critics is I think that they're high-handed. They're lofty. More often than not,
They are.
They say a lot of bullshit.
It sounds smart. Yeah. I'll agree with that. Got one.
Nice. Good job.
But
I think they're going to be
the other
able to
one.
get an easy revive, though. We have to try to rush
Oh,
them.
absolutely.
Probably a bad idea. Probably not. But, and that's my main thing, is that I would argue that critics are not for movies, primarily just because at the end of the day, I think critics never really align, for the most part at least, with the viewer, because they have to make some sort of high-handed, asinine statement about how, yeah, it was nice, but they really missed the mark on this one scene because so-and-so artistic bullshit here didn't correlate. And it gets really fucking dumb, in my opinion.
He jumped into the wind.
His teammate should time out real soon. Nice. Okay, got them. Somebody else in there.
He's on top of the statue.
I'm losing, I don't know that well. Oh, fuck. I'm flying over here.
I don't like fighting on the statue.
Yeah, it's not what I would rather we do.
Why did you pick me up, my dude? I don't understand what your plan is. Thank you. Thank you. I understand your plan. I'm gonna have to go pee when this match ends, so we'll have to return. Yeah.
Should I find it?
I mean, I'll wait and see what's happening because I kind of feel like we'll die pretty soon here. I don't know. I don't know. I absolutely agree though. Like movie critics, 100% are very tone deaf. They don't understand what movie audiences want. I think that's why every movie ever you hear the Rotten Tomato response, but also how the people feel. You know?
That to me is always, I think, the key thing there. If you look at the meta or the Rotten Tomato or anything like that, it's always, oh yeah, no, the critics gave the 90. Oh, fan scores 30, or the reverse.
Yeah. No, exactly, because critics care about things being artsy fartsy. That whole thing that I make fun of the Game Awards for, how like a game can be absolute horseshit, but it tried to always show the color pink in terms of important scenes, so everyone will fucking laud it as being this great, massive work of art. And it doesn't matter whether anything it did actually executed correctly, because it was trying to be art.
I don't know. I agree with it as a blank statement, but I also think that in terms of a lot of what they expect in it being artsy fartsy, is it just really sort of connects back to nonsensicalness. Like, oh, it didn't relate back to a 1950s black and white film that I really enjoyed, that I thought had a similar vein to it, and didn't connect the way that I wanted it to. So give it a 2. I just feel like they just get aggressively out of that, to the point where we can't really say.
Well, it's very much that Oscar bait type idea, you know? Where a movie's very clearly following a set amount of tropes because they know they'll win an Oscar. And I feel like video games have reached that standpoint too.
Shots from the sky that I didn't want to deal with.
Why am I floating up?
Oh,
No! No! What the fuck? No! I'm fucking dead in the water here. I can't do anything when I'm getting blown up into the fucking sky. Someone's shooting at me too. I have no guns.
You should have a pistol.
I have a pistol. But I don't have much else.
There you go.
No, I have sniper.
Hide in this bush with me, bud. Hide in this.
I am deadly.
You're not up in my bush at all. I'm in my bush.
Oh. But no, it's just one of those things. Like I know in any industry you want to question critics, but like movie industry wise, it always feel like the reason you question critics is because critics have a completely and utterly alien idea of what a movie should be that no one realistically lives up to. Whereas with video games, it always just kind of felt like critics are told what are the traits of a popular game, and if a game exhibits them, they just give it a high score, and if it doesn't, they give it a low score. And that is their purpose, is to drum up hype by saying, yes, Call of Duty Battlefield 2042 is super good, and it's an 87, and everyone should buy it. And I don't know, I just feel like video game critics are a lot more insidiously tied to sales. Because, like, I haven't met a person in real life that's like, oh, yep, Matrix Resurrection got an 82 on Rotten Tomatoes. I've gotta watch it. But I've seen a lot of people that are like, yeah, I'll look at the Metacritic or the Steam reviews and whatnot of a game to decide if it's worth playing. But overwhelmingly in video games, the critic reviews shouldn't be trusted, and yet they are. Oh god. They're right behind us. Oh, we're gonna fucking die. Oh, I broke the plan.
I'm pretty positive there's a team in the steel box, and I think that they're going for the team in the steel box. team's trying to break out of the box.
Hey, that's another team.
So great news, bad news. We got that guy. We placed in top 2. Bad news. The other
Hey.
guys directly above us.
For now.
The other one's above you. He's right behind you, dude.
I did not expect to win that,
I honestly didn't
motherfucker!
think you would. Good job, bud.
Woo-hoo! I just
fucking
want to say that was a great pistol. That was a great pistol. Spider-Man 2 is the best film of all time. That was a great pistol. Ooh!
Alright. Nicely
I'm
done.
sorry, dude. I'm sorry, dude. He was all reloading and shit, and I was just like, headshot, dead.
I mean that's on him. He had like a full minute there where you were just shooting his partner. Like he could have done anything.
He had full shield. I had no shield, Marcus. I had no shield.
Yeah.
He should have won.
That's what I'm saying though, is that he missed his shots, and B, he sat there and waited for so
Hey, man.
long.
I'm not
floating.
gonna throw away my shot.
You missed quite a few.
Fuck you. I want